I often think it's strange how the mind can be deranged and change to happy in just a single minute. When you are feeling scared and you feel no longer cared, and then suddenly the mind has sunshine in it. Just a single word, a single smile or song you heard can alter the entire way you think. As easy as some eyes, one caring touch or laughter cry can change your world in just a single blink. So remember, when you're sad and you think you're going mad, things are not as bad as they seem. It might be a day, another week or month it may, but things could just as easily turn into a dream. My name's Helen, I'm 35, and over the past 15 years I've been at various times diagnosed with depression, anxiety, psychosis, insomnia, mania, bipolar, schizoaffective disorder, borderline personality disorder, and post-traumatic stress syndrome. But I know now that I am far more than any label could ever describe me as. In some ways, I think I always had depression. I can remember lying awake for endless hours at night as a child, unable to comprehend what was going on around me. The world just didn't make sense to me. But it wasn't until I was around 14 that I realised there was a problem. I started feeling less and less able to cope with stopping or with being alone. I would do anything I could to avoid this and began organising endless nights out and partying with friends. I didn't know what I was scared of, but I knew I was scared. I've never done this before, so I'm pretty nervous. There was an ache inside, a hole if you like, that nothing seemed to be able to take away, although alcohol and endless relationships did numb it for a while. Then at the age of 18, after successfully completing school, thankfully, my world felt like it came crashing down on me. I built my life and my identity around temporary things, and when they were all stripped away and school had ended, I had no idea who I was anymore. Eventually, I found myself at Derby University. I promised myself I would only come away to university if I was willing to get a counsellor, because I'd already unsuccessfully tried moving to Manchester from Dorset, where I grew up, and had become very suicidal for the first time. I had great experience with university counsellors and slowly, with their help, navigated my way to getting a degree in therapeutic arts. But after university, the problems with mental health still persisted. So I was put on antidepressant medication and given NHS psychotherapy. My therapist, Claire, was a great support to me. Her caring perspective and gentle temperament was inspirational to my negative state of mind. I eventually found a job as a health advisor at Helen Talk. I enjoyed my work there and made some good friends and began at times to feel slightly better than I had in a long time. Frustratingly though, I then became physically unwell. It began the autumn of 2009. I seemed to get every bug that was going that year, and by autumn I just stopped getting better. It was as if my immune system just gave up. In January 2010, I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome, or ME as it's also called. I had to give up work, and for the first year of illness I could barely get out of bed. The exhaustion, weakness and pain and nausea were indescribable. But it was during that period of illness that a great change happened for me. My friend and housemate Leslie So became a Christian that year, and although I considered myself spiritual, I was quite against formal religion and certainly didn't believe in God. But Leslie began telling me the most wonderful stories of prayers being answered and people being healed. And so I eventually began going with her to a small house church. I was still adamant that I didn't believe what they believed, but I could see they were some of the most kindest people I'd ever met. I began also going to a wonderful group called Celebrate Recovery, available to anyone with hurts, habits and hang-ups. I think that covers all of us. Celebrate Recovery was life-changing for me, not only because it taught me the power of forgiveness, but also because it taught me the power of prayer. Weekly we would pray quite simple prayers but the inner transformation was dramatic. I began seeing that as people prayed for me, I began experiencing things I'd never experienced before, and for the first time in years, I began to feel, for brief moments at first, joy, true joy. So I began praying at home, tentatively at first, just beginning by saying, God, if you're up there and I don't know if you are, I need help. I was so shocked by how quickly my prayers began to be answered, and I began experiencing vivid dreams and experiences that would answer questions I'd been asking God, things that I had no way of knowing. And I began to document these things in journals and soon built up a history with God that I could no longer deny. And in the summer of 2012, I gave my life to Jesus, became a Christian and got baptized. It was the best thing I ever did. At that point, I still had depression, I still had anxiety, I still had ME, but for the first time in my life, I had hope. It's not so easy to explain what happened next because it was so miraculous. But the more I prayed for people and the more people prayed for me, the more faith I had that prayer and of course God made a difference. And then on Good Friday 2013, when some friends were praying for me, I got completely healed of chronic fatigue syndrome. I went from being ill for 3 years, from an often incurable illness, to completely physically well in a moment, and I've never been ill with it since. And as if God knew that people may well challenge my healing, he also turned my hair curly from being completely straight in a day, and it's remained curly ever since. But unfortunately, the ups and downs didn't end there. The healing was so dramatic and the spiritual experiences I were having were so intense that I ended up not sleeping for a prolonged period. And in that time, I developed bipolar and psychosis. Psychosis is when a person may see, hear or feel or experience things that aren't true, and yet they feel incredibly real to you. I was hospitalised for 6 months in 2014 and then 6 months in 2015. It was by far the hardest period of my life, and I absolutely thought I would never recover. But eventually I came out of hospital and slowly tried to get my life back to normal. Normal for me at that time was still being incredibly anxious and struggling with both leaving the house and with being home alone. Though generally recovery was very slow, in December 2016 I had another big turnaround. Ever since I was in hospital the second time, I struggled with my faith in God. It wasn't that I didn't believe in him anymore, but I just really struggled to see how a God that was that good could really let these things happen to me, or to anyone. So I made a choice, which however heartbreaking felt like the safest thing to do at the time. I stepped away from him. But then in December 2016, when I faced a big personal decision, I found myself praying to God for guidance for the first time in 2 years. Having persuaded myself by then that he probably didn't exist, I was so shocked when I began having a series of dreams and experiences explaining things that I would not and could not have ever known without him. I felt clearly in that season that God was calling me to lay down the life I had chosen for myself and to pick back up the life that he had begun calling me to previously, ultimately with him at the centre. I can't explain the practical outworkings of this, but all I can say is it took a huge and difficult sacrifice, which I definitely didn't make lightly and without deep thought and prayer. It's a good moment to get some water. But however stressful and emotional that choice was, I knew I couldn't live without God ever again. And so the answer had to be him, even if I couldn't see why, even if I couldn't see how, and even if nobody understood. I knew this was the path I needed to take. At that point, the hospital made an interesting decision, simultaneously to reduce the antidepressant medication I was on from the highest dose, which I had been on mostly for around 10 years, to the lowest dose in one go. A decision I must say I didn't feel entirely at ease about. I knew there was logically no way I could withdraw from this medication without properly experiencing several months of severe depression. And so I did what I'd never truly done before. I begged God from the bottom of my heart to take away all the depression and anxiety from me. That week, my mum and dad, who were here at the moment, looked after me. Mum fed me, dad picked me up from hospital. That day in my room, I laid down everything to God. I felt God calling me to lay down, and I admitted everything I felt Him calling me to admit, and I confessed everything I felt Him calling me to confess. And after 3 days, with much help from my family, I woke up feeling like a different person. And in 18 months since, I've never experienced true anxiety or depression again. And even my NHS therapist admitted at the time that it was way too quick a transformation to be put down to medication. I still suffer with post-traumatic stress disorder, I still have a CPN, and I'm still on a low dose of medication. But all of these things have potential to change in the near future. And even if they don't, I don't mind. I now have many, many hopes and dreams. I never used to dare dream before. But now I have too many to count. I never thought I would say it, but with God, the world really is my oyster. After 30 years of living in the dark, I now go to bed smiling and I wake up smiling. I just want you to know that no matter what your illness, your diagnosis, your labels, or your state of mind, it doesn't have to define who you are, and it doesn't have to stay that way forever, no matter what any doctor says. I never ever thought I would truly get better, but now I feel like a whole new person, better than I ever have before. I just want to say that I couldn't have done it without my amazing family, my incredible friends, my wonderful counsellors, and ultimately my God, Jesus Christ. With God, all things are possible. I just want to leave you with another poem, if I can find it. Today, I looked in the mirror and I saw a different person. Where once I saw defeat, today I saw me win. Where once I just felt weakness, today I found my strength. Where once I saw a dead end, today I see a door. Where once I felt a loser, today I win the war. Where once my life was hellish, today was victory. Where once I was imprisoned, today I have flown free. Where once I just felt starving, today I'm at the feast. Where once I lived in torment, today with you I reign in peace. Thank you.